Hi everyone, welcome to Creating Careers. Today we're focused on ambulance careers. So if this is your first Creating Careers, a very warm welcome. And if you've been to any of the ones that we've run over the last year, thank you for coming back. We'll start off as usual with a quick little bit of housekeeping. If we could ask our attendees to keep their cameras and mics off, we're expecting a lot of people on the course, so it helps with bandwidth. And we are recording the session, so you don't need to worry about taking any notes or scribbling anything down. In a few days, this will be up on the Liverpool City Region Careers Hub's YouTube channel, so you can go back through it, watch anything that you're not too sure of or anything like that. You have got a chat function, and depending on your Zoom setup, that's either at the top of your screen or to one side, and it looks a little bit like a speech bubble. If you've got any questions, comments during the interactive session, when you want to reply to things, you can just use this chat function, and we'll be monitoring that all the way through to get your questions over to our professionals. Okay, we'll start off with a little bit of an overview of what today is going to look like. So once we're finished with all this kind of housekeeping bits and pieces, we'll go into an interactive session that my colleague Leslie Ann's going to look after. That's going to last kind of about 15 minutes, and we really value your participation in that. We're then going to be interviewing our ambulance service members of staff who come along to help us today. So again, any questions for them, you just pop them in the chat and we'll feed them back to them. And then at the end, we'll finish up with a kind of Q&A and next steps and a bit about the other resource and other support that you can expect from us and all the different teams on here. Obviously, you're joining from all across the Northwest, from Liverpool, Manchester, Cumbria, Lancashire, loads of different schools and places. So although this is Northwest wide and some of the content might be a little bit general, you can get specific support in terms of what's local to you, opportunities, courses, apprenticeships through your local Uni Connect partnership. And you can see all of those guys up on the screen there. And again, that information about exactly where they are is going to be fed back to you afterwards through the Google Classroom. So you should have received your Google Classroom link with your Zoom link email from my colleague Abby Lee. If not, we will pop it in the chat again now and we'll send it out afterwards. But this is essentially an online virtual learning environment. It's got all the resources we cover, all the videos, links to the Uni Connect partnership, all the different things that you can access to kind of supplement this experience and make it as useful as it can be for you. So we really do encourage you to get signed up for the classroom as soon as you can. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the intro. So I will stop my screen share, hand over to Leslie Ann, who's going to run your interactive session. Thank you, guys.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a quiz based on your pre-work that we set before this session. Now, if you're new to Creating Careers, just to explain to you, before every session, we set some pre-work, so that is make sure you are as prepared as possible for today's webinar, okay? Then we'll set this little bit of pre-work quiz just to ensure that you have some feedback on that work that you've done, okay? So anything that you're not quite sure of that you could come across in the pre-work, you can tackle that throughout this pre-work quiz, and if that isn't answered during this quiz, you can then put that in the chat to us and we will help you with that element. Please get as involved as possible. The more you get involved, the more it will help you with your learning and help everyone else. No one is being tested whatsoever, okay? So no one's scores will be tested, so you've got nothing to lose by getting as involved as possible. So what I'll do is I will share my screen and I will start the quiz off nicely. One moment, just while I get that to full screen. Oh, it's just frozen a bit. There we go. Can everyone see that full screen? Someone just give me a thumbs up so I know we're ready to go. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So you'll have noticed with the pre-work, one of the things that the pre-work was designed to do was to enable you to understand that there is a massive variety of roles within ambulance services. Okay, so we've got this open and line here. When if you think of an ambulance service, you probably think of bright yellow light vehicles, blue flashing light, but there is a lot more to the services than that. And we really want you with this pre-work and with this quiz to understand that. So to start off, we're going to do a little bit of a quiz based on numbers and numbers around Northwest Ambulance Services. So I want you to tell me, based on your pre-work, so this wasn't this wasn't directly asked in your pre-work, but using what you've learned, you will be able to make educated guesses towards these numbers. So, Northwest Ambulance Services serve more than blank people across the communities of Cumbria, Lancashire, Greater Manchester, Merseyside, Cheshire and Glossop. So what do you think that blank number should be? So in a minute, a Zoom poll is going to come up on your screen and I want you to tell me whether you think Northwest Ambulance Services serve A, 7 million people, B, 956,000 people, or C, 3 million people. Over all of those areas described in that question, how many people do you think the ambulance services actually serve? So pop your answer in the chat and we'll see what people think of. If everyone has a guess, please. No one's checking any scores. Oh, nice and mixed. That's what I like to see. So the majority is actually thinking 50%. We have got a strong mix there, but 50% think that it's 3 million. It is actually 7 million. It's huge. Okay, 7 million people over 5,400 square miles are served by Northwest Ambulance. Okay, so next one, let's see what else we can find out about the service. So similar, you're going to get 3 options. So approximately how many 999 calls do you think they receive a year? Do you think it's A, 1.3 million? Do you think B, they have 2.5 million? Or C, 6.7 million? How many 999 emergency calls approximately do you think they receive a year? Put your answer in the chat and we'll see what we come up with. Okay, 6.7 million was the majority of the answers. It is actually 1.3 million. 1.3 million calls every single year, and they respond to 1 million of those calls. That is a huge amount of calls every single year to be dealing with. Okay, right, next we've got part 3. So the team make patient transport journeys every year for those who require non-emergency transport to and from healthcare appointments. So it's not just about paramedics responding to emergencies. There's also, patients who need to get to healthcare appointments and the team support with that. So how many of those journeys do you think are made every single year? Do you think it's 1.5 million? Do you think it's 500,000? Or do you think it's 750,000? Think about the numbers we've seen so far, what would your guess be? Just waiting for the answers. I love the way this is being so evenly split. I do enjoy tricking a few people on the quiz. So the answer is actually 1.5 million. Sorry, yeah, 1.5 million journeys. Okay, there's 1.5 million journeys every year to healthcare appointments just in our area. It just shows how massive the services are and how important they are to our region. Okay, so next one. So they also deliver an NHS 111 service, and you may have become familiar with that, particularly during COVID when GP services and things were shut down and people were using the 111 service quite a lot during lockdown. So the ambulance service is delivering this 111 service across the region for people who need medical help or advice. So it's not for those people who are ringing 999 as emergency. It's those people who feel that they need some help or advice but isn't quite an emergency situation. So how many calls do you think they get a year to 111? Do you think it's 1.5 million? Do you think it's 500,000? Or do you think it's 750,000? How many do you think we're getting? Let's wait till the poll comes up. Majority has got it right there. It is again that same number, 1.5 million. So you can see all these services are adding up and up, and it's a huge amount of numbers. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to flip this quiz a little bit. So instead of you putting answers into the poll and me giving you suggestions, I want you to come up with estimates. So based on all of those numbers that you know so far, so the amount of transport journeys, the amount of calls that they receive, the amount of people that they serve, I want you to start coming up with some estimates and figures using the chat function. So There are over 300 roles within North West Ambulance. How many people do you think they employ? How many staff do you think North West Ambulances employ? Put an estimate in the chat. So open the chat box and put your estimates in there. How many people? So Amy, fantastic. Thank you for giving your suggestion. We've got 3 million. We've got 10,000 from Harry. Anyone else got anything else they want to suggest? Any ideas at all of what they think? Lucy saying 2 million. We've got 800,000 from Lana, fantastic. 750,000, we've got a 3,000 from Leon. The answer is actually 6,300. So there's 6,300 people working across the Northwest in the ambulance services across 300 roles to support our area. So again, I want you to come up with some estimates for the next part. So adding these up, if you think there's 6,300 staff, they're responding to all these 999 calls, 111 calls, serving 7 million people. Okay, how many vehicles do you think they have? Again, estimate in the chat. So they have emergency and non-emergency vehicles that operate across the Northwest. How many of those vehicles do you think they have that are traveling all along our region? So again, in the chat, let's put your estimates. So we've already got 750. We've got someone saying 5,000. We've got Lucy saying 1,000. Kai is saying 3,250. I like the way you're a little bit more precise with that. Joshua is saying 575. The answer is actually 1,000. There are approximately 1,000 emergency and non-emergency vehicles operating. That is actually a huge number of vehicles just in our region. All right. Now, just to finish off with the numbers game, and then we're going to move on to a slightly different focus. Think about, summarize what our learning has been so far, right? They're serving more than 7 million people. There's approximately 1.3 million 999 calls every year. 1 million of them are responded to. They make 1.5 million patient transport journeys to non-emergency appointments. They're delivering the 111 service, handling more than 1.5 million calls. They employ 6,300 staff and 300 jobs. There are over 1,000 emergency and non-emergency vehicles. What do you think Northwest Ambulance Services annual budget would be? I'd be really interested to see what people could guess for this. How much money do you think Northwest, just in our region, how much money do you think they need to operate their services? Think about those numbers. Have a guess. I like that, Kai. That is a lot, to be fair. You are totally dead on. 200 million, okay. Good guess. 450 million from Amy. We've got Harry guessing 70 million. Does anyone want to make another guess? Or our guesses in? 125 million from Josh. Thank you very much, Joshua. The actual answer is 357 million. So I hope that gives you an idea of the scope of these services. When you say to most people, ambulance services, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, that's paramedics, isn't it? Well, you can see by those figures, the scope of Northwest Ambulance Services is huge, with a massive budget of, well, I don't know whether it's massive for meeting their needs, but it's a lot of money, £357 million budget, okay? So to finish off, I really want to hammer home to you that idea that there are so many job roles within this service alone. Now, part of your pre-work, I asked you to look at all those job roles, to look at job roles you thought you knew a lot about, job roles you hadn't heard anything about, and job roles that you weren't sure about. So I just want to quickly revisit some of those roles that you were asked to look at. So here is a photograph. This is taken from the Northwest Ambulance Service website, and I want you to match the photograph to the job title. So again, a poll's going to come up on your screen. Do you think this person is A, an ambulance care assistant? Do you think it's B, a paramedic, or C, emergency medical dispatcher? Put your answers in the chat or in the poll, and we'll see what we come up with. Fantastic, 90% are saying the emergency medical dispatcher role. And today we're lucky enough to have someone on live to come and talk to us about this role in more detail. But to just give you a very quick overview before you hear from our volunteer, this role operates in a really busy call centre environment, but a little bit different to those call centres you will probably pop up in your mind initially. These people are dealing with emergency and life-threatening calls. So the calls that they're dealing with, you're dealing with people who are very anxious, and you've got to make sure you reassure them, but at the same time, get all that critical information that you need from that person to ensure that they have the service they need as quickly as possible. So it is an absolutely hugely important job to our services, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that later on in the webinar. Okay, so next one. Here's our next image. Who do you think they are? Do you think they're A, ambulance care assistants? Do you think they're B, paramedics? Or do you think they're C, emergency medical technicians? Have a guess or tell me that you know that. Put your answer in. Let's see what we've come up. A little bit more split with this. And I like that because that's what I did on purpose by including a picture of the vehicle. So 44% are saying that ambulance care assistants, and that would be the correct answer. Ambulance care assistants, they work on their own or as part of a team, a part of a crew, planning journeys for patients to go to their appointments and treatments on time. So that number we saw of 1.5 million journeys for non-emergency healthcare appointments, that's these guys who are helping deliver that across the region. Okay. So, and our very last one before we finish with the quiz, who do we think this individual is? What do we think the role is? So A, mechanic, B, paramedic, or C, an urgent care practitioner? What would you think based on your pre-work, based on your knowledge of these roles, what would you think this individual does for a job? Okay, again, a little bit split, but we've got the majority of 43% going with a mechanic, and that would be correct. So we're trying to make sure that you understand there are all kinds of roles within this organization. You know, this picture that you can see there is from an apprentice mechanic in Northwest Ambulance Services. Ella helps look after a fleet of 91 ambulances. So they need to make sure that they are in full working condition to respond to emergencies. They need to be extra safe. The tyres need to be checked, the brakes, the steering, everything, because it's literally critical for, you know, the safety of people and getting to emergencies on time. Ella's an apprentice, so she works with the help of a mentor, checks over her work, and after her apprenticeship, she hopes to secure a position with the ambulance service as a fully trained mechanic. And she says that she finds it satisfying to fix a fault on an ambulance so it can go out back and help save lives. So it's a really, really important job knowing that she is contributing to her community. So there are many, many, many more jobs in Northwest Ambulance Services. You can see some of those roles listed there. They were on the link that you used in your pre-work. So please go back and explore them after today's session. And just before we finish off and hand over to our volunteers live today, don't forget, in every pre-work pack that we give out for creating careers, no matter what the job role is that's featured that week, we include this NHS Values Challenge. It is on slide 3 of your pre-work pack. You can go to our Google Classrooms to download that again, or it was emailed out in advance of this session. That will allow you to understand each of the 6 NHS values. They are imperative for you applying for an NHS role or course, or for you to successfully fill out your NHS role day to day. So make sure you know those values. You will need them for any applications. There is a challenge there for you to do in your pre-work that helps prepare you everything you need for them. And very lastly, at Creating Careers, we offer one-to-one mentoring support to help you into your pathway into a career in health and social care. So that can come in any form you like. It can be as often as you like, as little as you like. It can be over email. You can use the Google Classrooms for that. So we just want to know, are you interested in that? So a poll's just going to come up. It's going to be yes, not sure, or no. And I just want to know how you feel about that offer. We had a previous Creating Careers attendee, Molly, come on a few weeks ago and tell us about how the mentoring benefited her. I will put some links to some YouTube videos with Molly in the chat, and you can watch what she has to say about how useful mentoring was to her, to helping her get the career that she was after. I can't quite see the results of that poll. Abby, would you be able to just tell me what the results were for the mentoring?
71% said yes and 29% said not sure.
Fantastic. So 100% of you then have got some interest. So what I would say, if you're interested, talk to us in the chat. I'll put an email address out for you to get in touch with, or you can get in touch with us on the Google poll and we can give you more information about that. So I hope that gave you a really good understanding of North West Ambulance Services, ready to start today's webinar and meet our volunteers. So I will hand over to Sarah and Abby Lee, who are going to take the next part of the session. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you, Leslie Ann, and well done everyone for some really good answers in those questions. I didn't know the answer to any of them, so you're all pretty much doing better than me. So I'm going to start off by interviewing Abby, and then we'll interview Lisa a little bit later on. So Abby, could you tell us a little bit about what your job title is and an overview of what your job entails? Oh, you might just need to unmute there, sorry.
Sorry, I was trying to use trying to be clever and it wasn't working. Oh, thanks, Sarah. So yeah, my name's Abby. I am an emergency medical dispatcher for North West Ambulance Service. I've been doing that job since 2019. So as briefly went over then, I am responsible for taking the 999 calls when they come into the emergency operations centre. They can range from anything from somebody with stomach pain, somebody who's fallen down the stairs and, you know, broken a foot, to delivering babies, cardiac arrest. And so it's a very, very varied job, which is one of the good, the favourite part of the job is you sit with a headset like this on and the beep comes in your ear and you do not know. There's no forewarning of what call it is. You just don't know what's going to happen until that beep goes in your ear and the patient or the family member is telling you what's going on. So yeah, so the figures that you're seeing before, we do get a lot of calls and they're based over 12-hour shifts. So that's the usual is to do a mixture of days and nights. So we do it in blocks. So you do 60-hour blocks. Mixture of 2 days, 3 nights, or three nights, 2 days, 3 nights, 2 days, 3 days, 2 nights, and then you have a good 4 or 5 days off in between them. We deal with, as I said, as well as dealing with emergency calls, we deal with hospital transfers, doctors. So doctors may do a telephone triage with patients. As you're probably aware, a lot of people can't get to TGPs now. And even when they were, you'd be surprised the amount of people who go in to see the doctor actually need to be ringing an ambulance. So doctors will arrange for transport for their patients. We also have interfacility transfers. So that could be somebody who's been taken to A&E with burns, say, and they have to go to a specialist burns department in another hospital. We deal with police. So it's a very, very varied role. No 2 days are the same. So on average, at the moment, just to break them figures down, we're taking up to 1,200 calls a day. Roughly 450 to 500 of a weekday night shift. So your weekday night shift starts 7 till 7. So you start work at 7 o'clock in the evening and you finish work at 7 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, there is going to be a lull between the hours of 3 and 7 because everybody goes to bed, except of a weekend when they're all out a little bit more. So that bumps it up to roughly 6.5, 650 calls per night shift. So yeah, so I don't know really. It's a fantastic place to work. It really, really is. I only joined at the tender age of 37. I do hope that everyone on this webinar makes the right career choice that that they want at this stage. But I'm a good example that you can go in the wrong direction and finally get to where you want to be some years later. It's
Yeah.
you're never too old to change your career. And it is the best thing I ever done. I work with some fantastic people. I'm currently seconded to this team now. But yeah, my heart on the phones with my headset. I miss my headset.
Oh, that sounds incredible. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of your pathway into the role that you're doing now?
Yeah, so as I said, I started, so I'll go right back to where I started. So I wanted to join the NHS when I was 17. I had a part-time job in a nursing home, and I was cleaner and domestic assistant, doing the teas and the breakfast, etc. And then my granddad got dementia, so I really wanted to go into dementia nursing. Couldn't get on the course and joined the Home Office, so the Immigration and Enforcement. When I was 17, I got into recruitment there, and I used to actually attend careers events. I used to mentor, go into schools where there was students struggling academically, and we do one-to-one support mentoring and things like that. Really, really enjoyed that. So decided that was something I wanted to, again, change my career, change my focus from NHS, but I'm quite comfortable here. Had my little girl when I was 22, and unfortunately when I was on maternity leave, they decided to disband the Human Resources Department and move that down south. So we were all moved around. So I just sort of coasted really through, and I did have a good and varied career. I worked in accounts branch, then I joined the actual immigration part of it, and then I spent the last 10 years as a criminal caseworker, making decisions on deportation of foreign national criminals. So anybody who didn't have the entitlement to be here or had limited status and they committed a crime, they were a danger to the public, and it was up to us to deport them. So it was just human rights arguments, and to for and against, etc. But as I said, my heart was never ever in there. To take me 20 years to realise that. But I was lucky enough to have a cousin who worked for NWAS, and she was really, really encouraging me. And I wanted to become a paramedic, but I didn't have my science GCSE. So what we done, so in the absence of science GCSE, you can have healthcare experience. So Marie was saying to me, come and get experience on the phones, and that's in place of your science, and then you can go on the road and do the EMT apprenticeship, which I think Lisa's going to talk a little bit about in a moment. Done that, and then I joined, and I just seen there were so many different varied roles, as Leslie's touched upon. You don't realise we are just so much more than paramedics. I mean, even in the call centre, you have supervisors. Although we're called emergency medical dispatchers, we don't actually dispatch the ambulances. That's another unit completely. They obviously have their supervisors, performance managers, making sure that the operation centre runs smoothly. So what I then done was, I don't know whether anyone's ever rang 111 and 999. They have two totally different triage systems. So we are merging together to do a single primary triage. So I was part of that new team. So I'm also, as well as an emergency medical dispatcher, I am also a qualified 111 health advisor. So as part of my training, I had to qualify there and learn that. So there is North East Ambulance Service Trust. They are on the Pathways system. So I had to go and stay in Newcastle for 3 weeks and go and work for them to see how it transferred onto the 999 course and come back and deliver. And just a chance conversation I was having on my lunch break, spoke to Lisa and found out about this role now that I'm doing. So we are part of still the learning and development, but we involve ourselves with events like this, going to schools. I've been in a school today, doing a careers event, encouraging participation, giving some further information on roles and qualifications needed to join the ambulance service. So really, I've come full circle from where I started in the Home Office, but just for the right employer this time. So I've got my dream of working for the NHS and my dream of working in, the youth engagement. So it's going really well. And as I said, just to reinforce the fact, it's never too late to change your mind. I hope you get it right the first time, but if you don't be discouraged, and just follow your dreams, and you'll get there eventually.
That's a really interesting work history. I think I'd like to
Yeah.
have a go of all of those jobs.
I've been around, for want of a better phrase.
So I know that you mentioned and talked a little bit about the whole kind of the different teams and the different roles. Could you talk a little bit about how you work with different NHS professionals and what some of those roles might be that you work closely with?
Yeah, so obviously we work a lot with the doctors and nurses. We have nurses in 111. So what happens is sometimes, so you notice from before when we got 1.4 million calls, but we only go to 900,000 incidences. That's because a lot of people who, I mean, partly that's down to duplicate calls. So for instance, you could have a road traffic accident. Someone could be looking out of the window and only see one car, but someone around the corner can see it's a 3-car pile up. So we're getting a couple of calls for the same incidents, and they all have to be triaged. But there's other things that people don't necessarily need to go to hospital. So we have paramedics and nurses working for ourselves in the control room. We deal a lot with district nurses when they go to see patients, and they're called what we know as unplanned emergencies. So a district nurse might go to see a patient to change a dressing, and they're very poorly, so they have to ring us. But mainly, yeah, it's other paramedics. We deal a lot with 111 as well, I forgot to mention, because sometimes the 111 triage warrants an ambulance response, so they will pass them calls over to us. But mainly it's a lot, we deal a lot with paramedics and nurses in and out of the control room. So it is generally the clinical side of things. The doctors tend to get their staff, the receptionists, to call us, so we don't deal a lot with the GPs in themselves. Midwives, we have interfacility transfers for neonatal. We deal with midwives, so they'll have to take baby and mum and staff to one hospital, take them to a specialist hospital, bring the staff back. I'm just trying to think. The list's endless. We also deal a lot with different agencies, police and fire as well. Police may be called and they need our response, or someone will ring us because there's a fight ongoing, but they're more concerned about the injuries, whereas we've got to look at the safety of the crews, so we have to involve the police and things like that. So I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. So a bit like you don't know which calls you're going to get, you kind of don't know which people you're going to work with until you get the calls.
Yeah, really, that's it. That's one of the best parts of the jobs, because no one day is the same ever.
On the topic of the kind of best parts of your job, could you tell us your favorite thing about it, and then maybe a little bit trickier, your least favorite thing about your role?
Delivering babies. That's lovely. I mean, I could be going a bit far saying I deliver babies because I'm not actually on scene, but they're funny and they're so heartwarming. Dads are absolutely hilarious. They'll panic, they just freeze. So you'll phone up and you'll say, "My wife's having a baby," and you've got all the instructions to give them, and they go, "I can't do that, I don't know what to do," and the poor woman screams. So it's lovely, but it's comical. It's comical as well. But just to hear that baby crying is just lovely. It really is. And you get a little stalk badge as well to put on your lanyard. Yeah, I've got 3. My first baby was called Sophie, and very unprofessionally was said, "You're my first baby." I was that excited. I remember driving home. It's about a 45-minute drive, and as soon as I left the office, I rang my husband, and I grinned like a Cheshire cat all the way home. And then I rang him about 20 minutes later. And he went, "You've already told me." I said, "I know, I just want to tell you again." It was just a lovely feeling. The difficult ones for me, I've had some horrendous calls. Children in cardiac arrest are really awful. Quite distressing calls. There was a poor gentleman on the top of Scaffold Pike walking, and he went into cardiac arrest. So we had to get heli meds, and you could hear everyone in the background. But for me, it's not always the type of call, it's the emotion of the caller, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can't tell, I'm not going to start crying, because there is one call, and every time I tell the call, I cry. Because I'm only human. My husband laughs at me and says, "How do you do your job?" Because I'll cry at the drop of a hat. But it's just like, it is the emotion of the caller. So you could have something absolutely horrendous, somebody in, with their child and, having a fit, or which is horrible, because as a mum, you put yourself in their shoes. But if they're dealing with it calmly, it's better for you to cope with. But it's when they're on the other side of the phone and they're begging you for the help, and they're begging that person to be okay. It is very hard to deal with emotionally. Like it still gets me when I think of calls. To just briefly say, this was just a little old couple. I won't tell you the full story because my lip will go, but it was a little old couple who'd been married for so many years. And he was calling to say that he'd promised the hospital he'd be able to look after her after the dementia diagnosis, but it was just so dangerous. She was like putting glass bottles on the stove thinking they were kettles, and it was just the things he was saying to her. And I had to stay on the phone, and I felt like I was intruding in a way, but I had to, for their safety, to make sure they were okay. And it was heartbreaking. It really was heartbreaking, some of the stuff he was saying to her, for all the sickness and health, and the marriage vows. It was awful. I have to try and contain myself now, but yeah, you've got to be very, very resilient. And you're only human. And I think if you don't have a good cry and you don't get emotional, then it's not the job for you. Do you know what I mean? Because you've got to be that kind of person to care. And when someone is upset like that, you can help them. That said, the support you get in NWAS is amazing. Before if you're on a traumatic call, there is somebody on your shoulder before you've even asked for help, and they're there, and there's a supervisor's plugged into the phone. They're helping you. They're calling other people, and there's somebody ready to pull you away from your desk. You're never expected to just get a horrendous call and then go, "Okay, dust yourself off. Let's take another." It doesn't matter how many calls are queuing. Your welfare is the most important. And you toddled off for it. We call it a car park walk, KPW. Car park walk, and we just have a little chat and a little breather until you're ready to go back on. And then if you do feel like you need to, I've been part of debriefs with paramedics on really bad calls where they get, they're not allowed to go back on shift until everything's been, everything's sorted, and they feel ready to go back. Or if the case may be, don't go back on shift at all. For the rest of the day. But yeah, it's everything. There's funny calls as well. I was telling today, I remember a fella on a paraglider. He'd obviously bought himself it for his 50th birthday, and his wife was at the bottom of the hill, and he'd crashed at the top. So she had to run up, and she had to lie on him, because it was the way he was tied up. If she'd have let go of him, he'd have flew off. And she couldn't get it off, which you laugh now, but it must have been absolutely terrifying. But just the oddest things in the world, and you just you come home and you go, "Oh my God, you won't believe what happened today." So there is that good balance of, you can have a good cry, and the next minute you're thinking, just what is going on here? Some things, some situations people get themselves into. But yeah.
So it's probably fair to say, as a result of your job, you wouldn't advise paragliding as a.
I wouldn't. No. I'd get yourself something a bit safer for your birthday. Yeah.
We've just got kind of one question left, which is, because we've got lots of students on the call today and students who'll watch this back on demand. If you kind of had to give any advice to those students who are interested in your area of work, what would that be?
In terms of from a personal point, or
Whatever you
if
think
you,
most
yeah, if
important
you,
for them.
yeah, I mean, you know, it is very scary, but just believe in yourself. You know, it's there's fierce competition to get into the NHS. So if you want to do some, I would go online, I would do some situational judgment tests, because you just do mock ones for them. I mean, I remember my one was nothing to do with the NHS. It was about a credit card company and booking a holiday. So it's just all about you listening, being able to listen as well as type into a triage. So get yourself practiced on them. You know, get yourself a really tight application form. Always follow your job description. Try and get some voluntary work as well. That's really, really important in every aspect, really. You know, just to support your applications, but also if you're a little bit low on confidence skills, or you know, speaking to people, it just helps to build your self-esteem up as well. Research the role is a massive one. Yeah, and just, I don't know, really, as I said, you've got to be a certain kind of person, and I don't mean that from an egotistical point of view, but you know, you've got to care. I think anyone who wants to join the NHS anyway is that kind of person, and
Yeah.
that's the reason why they want to join the NHS. But yeah, just research your role, and remember, if you do get the job like me, you'll cry. You know, and it's all right. It's all right to be like that. You're only human. And I think that's what makes you a good member of the team.
Oh,
So I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm
yeah.
being like really proud to get the job. I feel like I'm a proper interview.
No, that was incredible. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Oh, you're
Guys, if
welcome.
you've got any questions, please do remember you can pop them in the chat for Abby. And then I think we'll start grilling Lisa now, if that's okay. We might have to come back to you a little bit later, Abby, if we get anything in the chat, but we'll give you.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Sarah. You okay?
Yeah. Would you be able to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and NWAS in general and your kind of role there?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit of a strange one, because I'm actually a nurse that works in the ambulance service. So just a little bit of my journey is I'm an A&E and trauma specialist nurse, a long time in the NHS. But I developed down the educational route. So I had a real interest in developing staff and teaching our future workforce. So I went into an education role, teaching 16-year-olds for our future talent pipeline. We used to call them cadets back in the day, where they came into us at 16, had aspirations to be nurses, midwives, paramedics, doctors, physios, OTs, everything. And we did a 2-year program with them in the hospital environment. Then went further afield and joined the ambulance service. So I'm actually I work in the education team and I'm one of the managers. So I have the weirdest job title on the planet, which is the Widening Access Development Manager. Now, when I first started, that a lot of people thought was there to widen the door frames to enable wheelchairs, which I'm really not. You know, first and foremost, I'm a nurse, but I'm an educator as well. And my role currently is I work with anybody that wants to get into service, and that's young people that are unemployed, people that are on career changes, like Abby, military personnel that want to look at us as an employer, and we assist them. My team, and Abby and a couple of other ladies of my team, we work with people to help them make right career choices, advice and guidance on applications, one-to-one support. For young people, we do things like this. We go to careers events up and down the whole region, lots and lots of things, just to try and help people make right decisions. So that's what I currently do. But first and foremost, I'm a nurse. So I'm the black sheep of the ambulance service because I'm a nurse.
Oh, I'm sure Abby said there's lots of nurses that
Yeah.
she
I think it's because I'm an A&E nurse, so I spent a lot of my career telling paramedics off because they're nicking too many blankets from the A&E department. So as soon as I say my background's A&E, they all go because we're usually going, what, I only told you could have one blanket, you know, when they're restocking the vehicles, when they've brought us the patients through to the A&E department. But I'm not like that. I used to make sure they always had a good cup of tea when they brought us patients in.
Yeah, probably one of the most important parts.
Yeah, that's a real good tip for anyone working in the NHS, be able to make a good brew.
Fab. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about some of the other roles that are available in the ambulance service?
Yeah, so for people, you know, when we like I said at the beginning of the sessions, you know, when you say ambulance service, a lot of people, and I'm presuming a lot of yourselves that are on this call, are looking at paramedic careers. So there's two routes to become a paramedic. Now, there's the usual route where you apply via UCAS to go to university and do a paramedic degree, which is a 3-year degree. Through the normal UCAS application process, you go for interviews, make sure you do 5 choices, not 3. It's well worth it because it is a very, very hard profession to get into because they don't take large numbers compared to other professions like nursing. And that's purely because they don't have the placement capacity to actually teach them people to become paramedics as much as they do in a hospital setting. You know, a hospital, there's lots of wards and departments where lots of students can go on to, but in an ambulance service, your actual clinical environment is the back of an ambulance. So we can't have, you know, we've got to have room for our patients. That's why they don't take as many on at university. But there is actually a secondary route to become a paramedic. You can actually do it via apprenticeship routes. So in our ambulance service, we actually provide what's called an emergency medical technician apprenticeship, which is a level 4 apprenticeship. So usually when you finish either your A-levels or your T level or your BTEC, etc., you can apply. If you don't want to go to university, you can come and become an emergency medical technician. Now, that is an apprenticeship which lasts approximately 15 to 18 months. You gain a level 4 qualification, which is called an associate ambulance practitioner qualification, but we also train you to emergency response drive. So you get a level 3 emergency response driving qualification on top of that, obviously because you're driving NHs very quickly within the law though. Then once you've actually qualified as an emergency medical technician within our service, you will do 2 years as an EMT, and then you're actually eligible to apply for our paramedic degree apprenticeship, which is for our internal staff. So it's an internal development pathway. So currently within the ambulance service this month, I've got 200 paramedic degree apprentices, which are our own staff, which we are developing internally. They started as emergency medical technicians, did the level 4 qualification, did 2 years service, and now they're on their pathway because they've got an aspiration to become paramedics. So there's 2 different ways to become paramedics in there. We have, like I said, 300 different roles. If we put it into context, in the NHS, generally, there are 350 different roles, and in an ambulance service, we've got 300 of those. So it isn't just about clinical roles. You know, we saw the picture of Elsa on there. Elsa is a mechanic. We've got mechanics, we've got IT experts. You know, I need them quite frequently because I'm old and I always break IT and I'm not very good. I'm quite chuffed that I'm not on mute still. So, you know, we have IT experts, we have finance, we have accountants, we have a legal team, we have doctors that work with us. We've actually, you know, I'm just going back to an event that Abby and myself went to. A young person said, oh no, I don't want to work in the NHS, I want to be a pilot. And I said, so who do you think flies our air ambulances? And they went, oh, because we have air ambulances. We have specialist paramedic roles. You know, paramedics go right up to consultancy level. We've got HART team, which is a hazardous area response team paramedics, which are, you know, they go to our, as it says on the tin, hazardous area. I jokingly call them the SAS of the paramedic service because they have an outfit for every occasion. They can go to patients that might be in the water. They can rescue from water, from heights, under ballistics, so under gunfire. They have an outfit for if they have to go into a building that, you know, is full of smoke. So they have breathing apparatus. They have to be very, very fit and have to go through medical and fitness testing every 6 months. But again, we've got paramedics that do that as well. So paramedics that go in the air ambulance, HEMS, you know, again, and SORT teams, which are again lots of resilience. It's endless. If you think, you know, we're an organisation that gets a lot of vehicles out on the road, does all them calls, so, you know, helps all them patients in 1 year, but there's a lot of cogs in our machine that assist that. So they need the equipment, so we need a procurement team that can actually source the equipment at the right costs for the NHS to make sure that we don't go over budget with that large chunk of money, which seems a lot, but it isn't when you think about equipment, wages, diesel, for our vehicles, charging points for our vehicles. It's not that much really when you think with what we actually do. So if you name a profession, I can guarantee we've got it in some shape and form. A full education team that educate all our staff. You know, when new starters come in, we don't say there's your keys, there's your Nino, off your pot. We need to make sure that people are competent to go to our patients and that they're confident to deal with our patients in the variety of situations that they're put in on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty much whatever our students are interested in should be able to find something fulfilling with you guys.
Definitely so. There's a role for in the NHS and us for everything. I can't think of anything that isn't there, even down to catering. You know, our staff need food, cleaning. We need clean environments. There's all sorts of infection control, health and safety. You know, there's all sorts.
Absolutely. And so obviously we've got students on the call today from kind of year 10 and up. If you had to kind of give them some advice on things they can be doing now to prep for their application and help them get into the best place for whichever route they decide to take, what kind of things would you advise them to be thinking about, or skills that they could be developing?
Yeah, I think for me, year 10s and 11s, so that's, you know, you've made choices, you're in that difficult couple of years. For me, and you know, I'm a mum. I've got children that have gone through that, year 10s, 11, etc. For me, it's don't freak out, try your hardest. You know, the world doesn't end if you don't get what you need. There's other routes to do things. And like Abby was saying, if you're passionate enough, you will get to where you want to be. But work hard. If you know, I jokingly said, I said this to my son when he was your age. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. But I was still really proud of him when, you know, he did that. And your parents will always be proud of you no matter what they say to you at this moment in time, you know, when they're telling you revise, etc. It is important that you do put your best into everything, but as long as you do your best, no one can ask any more of you. But next steps, make sure that if you're looking at healthcare careers, especially clinical careers, look at the T-level routes, look at the BTECs, look at the A-levels. It doesn't really matter which next steps you take. You've got free education until you're 18. Don't get it after that, so use it. You know, it's make sure you study in something, research, go to all, don't just think, you know, it's about A-levels, go and see the colleges, look at all the different programs that are out there. Ask the questions of them next step providers, the colleges, the sixth forms, the apprenticeship providers, research what you want to be. Get onto the Step Into the NHS website, have a little mini go at that brilliant quiz that's on there, because, you know, it does help you a little bit, and maybe it makes you think about careers that you never even thought about. If you go onto them websites, have a look around. And if you do go into that career and you start in that career pathway and then halfway through you think that's not for me, that's okay as well. Like Abby, you know, you don't have to continue in that route if it's not for you. I work with many of my colleagues that started off in one realm and ended up in a total different direction. That is fine. The world's your oyster. Definitely voluntary experience, but don't get fixated that I want to be a paramedic, so I need to go and work in an ambulance. Any experience is vital. You know, young people really don't think that, you know, part-time jobs in McDonald's and KFC are of any value to healthcare. They are. You know, hairdressers, some of our amazing staff have come from them backgrounds, because you're developing skills like communication skills, conflict resolution. When you're in McDonald's and your customer's got the wrong burger, they're not best pleased. You know, we did them kind of skills transfer into the NHS. So don't be worried too much about, I haven't got specific healthcare experience for that role. Go and volunteer in your local residential home. Do the brews for the residents in there. Talk to them about their journeys. Nobody knows their medical condition better than the person themselves. They will tell you everything about their medical journey through all the doctor's appointments or the treatments, you know, how it's affected them personally. You know, there's lots of avenues. Don't be worried, because it is hard to get work experience or voluntary experience in NHS hospitals, because, you know, there's an age stipulation, etc. But go and offer yourself up to the local care home to do the brews for them, or, you know, do the flower arranging for them, or to talk to patients of residents that are in there. You know, there's lots of different ways you can get that kind of vital skills. And like Abby said, gain your confidence of talking to people from all different walks of life, all different ages.
That's brilliant. You actually sort of preempted my next question, which was, we usually get asked how students can get volunteer experience.
Yeah. A lot of NHS trusts, you know, they have websites that you can go on to, and they'll have a volunteer. We have 3 voluntary roles in the ambulance service. Unfortunately, 2 of them require a driving license, so you're not quite at the age range, because we're an ambulance service. It's what's on the tin. But we do have a patient and public panel voluntary role, which it's absolutely a fantastic opportunity, and we really, really want young people, because the patient and public panel actually helps us shape our service for the communities we serve, and that is all generations, all backgrounds. You know, it's actually influencing us, looking at us as a service, and helping us make sure our service is fit for purpose for the communities that we serve and the people we serve. You know, the other roles are community first responders, which are, you know, again, you've got to be able to drive, because you carry what's called a Good Sam app, where it could be that in your local community there's somebody who requires assistance, and you go there because you could be the first person on scene with a basic kit, with the training that we've provided you, that can actually make a difference before the ambulance crew gets there. Somebody might be in a cardiac arrest, you can start CPR before the ambulance crew gets there. That's vital for survival rates. And then the other one is a volunteer car driver, which assists our patient transport service for people that haven't got mobility issues, but might not have the ability to go to and from the hospital appointments. You know, that you can take in your car to a hospital appointment and assist the community that way.
Yeah. So there's lots of things they can be doing now, and also quite a few things to put a pin in for a few years down the line. Yeah. And
don't forget St John's. St John's is a cracking experience. They have St John's cadets as well that you can link in with. That's really good experience if you're looking at ambulance careers such as paramedics, EMTs, PTS, EMDs.
Fab. I'm going to just take an opportunity to encourage everyone to pop your last questions in the chat. We've got a couple minutes left. And Lisa and Abby, if you'd be okay to answer anything that comes up in the chat, and I'll cover our kind of goodbye sides. But thank you so much. That was so interesting. I feel like me and Abby on our team might feel like a job change after that one.
We can find you one. We can find a job.
Well, thank you so much. So I'm going to share a couple of slides about other opportunities, guys. So if you can just bear with me for 1 second while I try and get my PowerPoint back to where it's meant to be. So obviously you've had all the stuff today, which has been incredible, but there are a few other events in May. Again, we'll pop this in the email that you get after this and the Google Classroom, but it is a chance to have another chat, and if you kind of go away from here, reflect on some questions that you maybe wish you'd asked or not quite feeling brave enough to use the chat right now. These are fantastic events, so please do take advantage of them. In terms of next steps from us, this will go up on the YouTube channel, so you can watch it back if you want to just go over anything, or if it was just so enjoyable you'd like to rewatch it like a Netflix series, that's available. But you will also get a follow-up email from Abby Lee Rendell, who sent you the Zoom link for today. That's got a post-work roadmap in it, and that's basically something Leslie Ann's designed as a kind of follow-on from the pre-work and the session you did today. The idea of it is you spend 5 minutes on it, not very long at all, reflecting on the session. Did you enjoy the career? Do you think it'd be a good fit for you? And then that will really help you when you're making those next steps, having to look back on things. If you do already have one of those roadmaps that you started on previous webinars, you can just use the same one. You'll also have in that email the option for a one-to-one follow-up with the UniConnect staff in your region. So for example, if you're in the Liverpool City region, it will be me that follows up with you. But basically, if you want to chat to someone and say, I'm interested in this, I don't know how to do it, I've got these concerns, I've got maybe this barrier, I'm not too sure how that works, you can have a sit down with us, either virtually or face-to-face, whatever works, and we can help get you on the right track. Obviously, this will all go on Google Classroom, so please do take advantage of that. If you scroll up to the chat, it is the very first or second post. And we do encourage you to sign up for further webinars. You've heard a lot about how different NHS professionals work together. So even if you're thinking, oh, I maybe don't think I would want to do that, it's really useful to know about other things that are going on in the NHS. You should have seen this website because this is how you signed up for today, but all the remaining webinars for the rest of this academic year, they're all listed on there. So please do go on and sign up. I think coming up shortly, we've got dentistry, pharmacy, healthcare science, and estates and facilities as well, to give you some more views of the NHS. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me. I'm going to leave this up here if anybody wants to kind of snap the link or anything as you leave, because it's coming up pretty soon. So please do sign up quickly. But other than that, thank you very, very much for attending, and we hope you have a lovely kind of rest of the afternoon. Oh, and Abby's made the Google Classroom link the most recent link in the chat as well. Way ahead of me as always. But thank you so much, guys.
Oh, thank you very much, Sarah and Abby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
lovely
Good-
bank holiday, everyone.
Yeah,
And good luck.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.